Visualize this what if with me. What if you were a CEO hired to revitalize an organization, yet with every initiative and every step, all you feel and experience is the pushback of the culture? You may even feel the pushback within your leadership team, which is strange to you because you have the title, you've got the credentials, you've been in this position before, and you've been hired to do this job because you truly do know what you're doing and you're holding a vision of change. Yet, you continue to initiate the change and the pushback continues to happen. This is a real situation that's happening in our nervous systems right now in the world. We're facing unprecedented amounts of unprocessed information. Think of your central nervous system as a computer or a processing center, slowed down by layers of energetic stress that just haven't been regulated. Why? Because the form of leadership in the past thrived with command and control. A little bit of fear-based leadership, or maybe a lot sprinkled on top-down pressured approach, silos, micromanagement. These are all hardwired programs in our nervous system. For the culture, this equates to stress. Stress on the job, stress in your leadership, and stress that becomes the personalities that I'm going to explain to you that we use in our neuroregulation program, Regulate to Lead and Regulate to De-escalate. Why is this important? Because when you start to experience these personalities in our trainings, you will build a heightened awareness of what's going on. And awareness is key because it increases the consciousness of what you need to do for your strategy to work. So let's talk about these personalities because this will lead me to my how-to portion. How do you transform culture in this day and age? The first personality is fight. Vision this with me. The fighter gets defensive or aggressive to the change, starts to give you all the reasons why this change is not going to work and fights against it. They become the naysayer, the critic. They resist the change in any way that they can, and they want to take it down. This is the fight part of our sympathetic nervous system that, when goes unchecked, becomes a personality, a behavior, a belief system, and sometimes it's super unconscious. It's an unspoken story that just hasn't been processed. Flee, fight, flight, or the fleer. The flee person just feels like they can't solve the problem. They can't take the initiative. They can't deliver the initiative. They're not able to take action, so they flee the scene. The words that we use for this in our training are avoidance, excuses, and denial. Kind of stumbled over that one, excuses. They excuse themselves from making the change. They avoid the change initiative at all costs, and they become kind of an issue in your management team and in your employees because they're not available. So communication breaks down and trust breaks down. Freeze is overwhelm. This is the third personality in our stress personalities. Freeze is when the system just becomes non-emotive, non-thinking, non-active, and completely frozen. So they are a lot like the fleer, and a lot of times the progression goes from flee to freeze because the nervous system can't take the input of your initiative. Just think of the person hearing wah, 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 wah. They can't even hear what you're trying to tell them, and they can't follow the directives. Their nervous system is in complete overwhelm, and these people usually head towards burnout. Fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. The fawn person is driving on anxious energy. They want to please the initiative. They want to be seen as the one. They want to do it all right. And many times they do it as a martyr, and it's not authentic leadership. It's like they're just trying to please the initiative and get the job done, and they start covering for everybody else, which also becomes a communication issue because when someone's spreading themselves out too thin, it breaks down teamwork, and your initiative is probably built on the entire team or teams driving the initiative forwards. And then there's the underminer. I think it's a combination of all of these. The person is completely overwhelmed. They don't want the change, and they're going to be the voice of why, like the fighter, this shouldn't happen. But they do it subversively, and it becomes a current. And the thing about the underminer is they become the they pointer, and they gather people around them, whereas the fighter is just in the ring fighting them against you. The underminer collects people around them and starts to convince them that they're right, that this initiative is wrong. The thing that I want to reinforce to you right now in this what if scenario, no matter who you are and how you're leading and what's happening, is that these personalities do exist in each and every one of us. They're unprocessed stressors that are part of our organizations that we just have left unchecked. So how do you take care of this? What's the how-to to this situation? The how-to is deep listening through cultural perspectives. Cultural perspectives was built out of the idea that we have mirror neurons, meaning the ability to see what's happening through your culture. However, the biggest transformational piece of this type of assessment, deep listening to what your culture has to say, is that we hold the space for the good and the bad. We hold the space for whatever story needs to come out. Because inside of each and every person are unprocessed thoughts, feelings, beliefs, habits, perceptions, and a lot of them, again, are unprocessed. So as our consultants go in and do this deep listening, we're also using our intuition and our open space. I call it fluid space ability. We allow ourselves and your participants, your key stakeholders, to navigate a transparent world. So we're creating rapport for your initiative. We're creating that handshake because your organization then says, hey, we're going to support you in this change, and we're going to listen deeply to what you have to say. In this, also, your leadership team, which is part of this, is present, consulted by us to stay present and grounded into the change that you want. We go through some diagnostics and some stress mapping, and then we go into the cultural perspectives where we start to really listen deeply to what's happening in your organization. What are the unspoken stories inside of your organization? And that's so important, unspoken, because when people share their voice, you get rapport and you get results. People want their voice to be heard, but how do you do that when you're in a change initiative, which a lot of us are in right now? It's hard. Like I said, there are a lot of stressors, there are a lot of perceptions, beliefs, thoughts, feelings, emotions, interactions, and like I said, again, these personalities stopping the initiatives. So that's where AI comes in, because it thinks faster than the human brain. It can be trained to a certain scenario. It can tell us certain directives and directions. And when we process the voice of your organization that's been listened to by a neutral party, our consultants, who aren't emotionally involved or leadership involved in the initiative, we're able to pull from the voices of your people exactly what it is that's blocking and resisting the change. Now, this is just one of the ways that we use the cultural perspective assessment, and I'll get into it more as we move on. But you have to understand that the how-to to this is take down the stress, take down the barriers, work with the central nervous system, and start to listen deeply to what your culture has to say. When we pull that, we're not pulling the information of personalities like you're red and you're green and you're blue and you're purple and this is how, I need to relate to you and communicate with you. We're listening. Our system is called align, ask, listen, intuit, guide, and neuroregulate. In this case, we want to regulate the nervous system and start to reprogram those personalities. Again, fighting against the change, fleeing from the change, freezing in the face of the change, and fight, flight, freeze, fawn, pleasing the change in authentic leadership. And then there's the underminer, which doesn't really have an F. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and undermine. And when you can start to shift this dynamic in your organization, your change will happen and you'll get faster results. And with the power of AI, it makes this totally possible. We can take tons of information, pump it through AI, build that consciousness through AI, and start to get the targeted, customized solutions that you need to make your change initiative a success. So, what if you are that CEO that wants a change to happen in your organization? No matter what it is, this process can help you. No matter how large or small your organization, this process can help you, can happen, I was trying to say. And I want to leave you with this. The how-to is real. We have it scientifically mapped out. It's called the science of strategy. And I'll be back with more because I want to talk about the tension that's inside of this resistance and how the brain can start to recognize that tension. So stay tuned. Follow me on LinkedIn where I publish articles on this, and I will be back helping you vision the success and the strategy and the implementation that you truly want and desire. Have a great day.